Imagine waking up tomorrow and checking your bank account. You have $10,000, but there's a new message you've never seen before. $7,000 of your balance will expire in 30 days. Spend it or lose it. You try to buy gold as a hedge. Transaction blocked. Purchase category restricted. You try to send money to your cousin overseas. Transaction blocked. International transfers require additional authorization. You try to withdraw cash. Cash withdrawals limited to $100 per week during economic emergency. This isn't science fiction. The building blocks for these features are already being tested in China's digital yuan, especially time-limited and targeted spending. Over 261 million Chinese citizens are now using this system. The Federal Reserve, the European Central Bank, the Bank of England, and over 130 other central banks are researching and developing similar systems. They're not hiding it. They're publishing papers about it, holding conferences about it, running pilot programs right now. And if you understand the history we've covered in the previous two videos, the $38 trillion debt crisis and the Executive Order 6102 confiscation playbook, you'll see why central banks find these capabilities attractive. Because a central bank digital currency isn't just a technological upgrade. It's infrastructure that could enable financial policy implementation more precise than anything possible in the 1945 debt liquidation era. Let me show you exactly how this works. What is a CBDC really? Let's start with the basics, because the terminology around CBDCs can be confusing. A central bank digital currency is not cryptocurrency. It's not Bitcoin. It's not decentralized. It's the exact opposite. A CBDC is a digital version of national currency where every single unit exists only as an entry in the central bank's database. You don't hold dollars. You hold permission to spend dollars that the central bank controls. Right now, when you have money in a bank account, you have a claim on dollars. The bank owes you money. The bank can fail, which is why we have FDIC insurance. But the relationship is between you and the bank, with some government oversight. With a CBDC, there is no bank in the middle. Your account would be directly with the Federal Reserve. Every transaction you make could be visible to the central bank in real time. Every dollar you spend, every dollar you receive, every purchase you make, all of it flowing through a system the government directly controls. The Federal Reserve's own research papers describe this as direct central bank liability. That's technical language for you don't own money, you have permission to use the government's money. Now, the Fed says they're considering a two-tier system where commercial banks still exist as intermediaries. But even in a two-tier system, the central bank would have direct visibility and control over the entire ledger. The banks would become administrators, not independent actors. We don't need to speculate about how CBDCs could work because China has already built one, and they're quite open about its capabilities. The digital yuan, officially called the ECNY, launched in pilot programs in 2020. It's now active in over 260 cities with over 261 million individual users. As of mid-2025, the system has processed over 7 trillion yuan in cumulative transactions. That's nearly $1 trillion US. Here's what the digital yuan can do. Features that are documented in official Chinese government publications. Feature 1. Expiration dates. The government can program money to expire if not spent by a certain date. In October 2020, during COVID, they distributed digital yuan in Shenzhen that had to be spent within 6 days or it became worthless. This forces consumer spending and prevents saving. Feature 2. Geographic restrictions. Money can be programmed to only work in certain cities or regions. During the 2022 Beijing Olympics, foreign visitors received digital yuan that could only be spent within Olympic venues. After the event, the money became worthless. Feature 3. Category restrictions. The technical architecture allows the government to potentially block purchases in specific categories. The system is built with programmable functionality that could, in theory, restrict certain types of transactions based on policy goals. Feature 4. Potential for negative interest rates. The programmable nature of digital currency would technically allow the People's Bank of China to automatically adjust balances. While not publicly implemented, the infrastructure exists to impose holding fees or negative rates if they chose to, forcing spending rather than saving. Feature 5. Complete transaction surveillance. Every transaction is logged, analyzed, and accessible to government authorities in real time. The government knows where you shop, what you buy, who you pay, and who pays you. All of it. Feature 6. Targeted distribution. When China issued COVID stimulus through digital yuan, they demonstrated the ability to target distribution precisely and program how the money could be used, showing the potential for granular control over government payments and their permitted uses. This isn't dystopian fiction. This is operational reality affecting 250 million people right now. And Western central banks are studying this system carefully to understand both its capabilities and implications. The Federal Reserve says they haven't decided whether to issue a CBDC. This is technically true, but they've been researching CBDCs since 2016. They've published dozens of papers exploring various aspects of digital currency. They've run pilot programs with major banks through initiatives like Project Hamilton. They've built prototype systems capable of processing transactions at unprecedented speeds. The infrastructure and research exist. The question is when and whether policymakers decide to deploy it. Let me show you what their research reveals, because this is public information. Research Initiative 1, Money and Payments, the US Dollar in the Age of Digital Transformation, Federal Reserve Board, January 2022. This comprehensive report explores the potential benefits and risks of a US CBDC, discussing how digital currency could enhance payment systems and raise important questions about privacy, financial stability, and the role of government in the monetary system. Research Initiative 2, Project Hamilton, Federal Reserve Bank of Boston, and MIT, 2022 to 2023. This technical collaboration successfully built a CBDC prototype that processed 1.7 million transactions per second in testing. That's faster than Visa's entire global network capacity. The infrastructure has already been proven technically feasible. Research Initiative 3, various Federal Reserve District banks. Multiple Fed district banks have published research on CBDC design choices, exploring questions around programmability, privacy features, and implementation architecture. The research consistently examines how CBDCs could provide more precise control over monetary policy implementation. The infrastructure capability exists, the technical research is complete, what remains is a policy decision about deployment. Now let's connect this to the debt crisis from Video 1 and the confiscation precedent from Video 2, because CBDCs represent a potential solution to a very specific problem. The government needs to inflate away $38 trillion in debt, but inflation has escape valves. People can buy hard assets, gold, Bitcoin, real estate, anything that holds value better than currency. In 1933, gold was the escape valve, so they confiscated it. Today, the escape valves are more numerous. Precious metals, cryptocurrency, foreign currency, real estate, commodities. Direct confiscation of all these would be difficult, but controlling money at the point of transaction could eliminate the ability to buy them. A CBDC would provide this capability. If Bitcoin were made illegal, authorities wouldn't need to confiscate your Bitcoin. They could simply program CBDC wallets to reject any transaction involving cryptocurrency exchanges. Transaction blocked at the source. If capital flight became a problem, they wouldn't need complex capital controls enforced by banks. They could program CBDCs to reject international transfers above certain amounts, or require government approval for each transfer, or impose exit taxes automatically. If they wanted to discourage gold purchases, they wouldn't need to make gold ownership illegal. They could add gold dealers to a restricted category. Your money literally wouldn't work at gold dealers. This would be financial policy implementation with precision impossible in any previous era. But here's the key. People likely wouldn't accept this voluntarily. You can't just announce we're eliminating cash and giving you programmable money that expires. There would be significant resistance. History suggests this would require a crisis. A crisis severe enough that people accept dramatic measures as necessary and temporary. The historical playbook is clear. Step 1. Establish the crisis narrative. The banking system is failing. People are losing their deposits. We need to protect consumers. Cryptocurrency is funding terrorism and money laundering. We need to bring digital assets into the regulated system. There's a run on banks. We need to freeze accounts temporarily to prevent systemic collapse. Step 2. Deploy CBDC as the solution. Your new Federal Reserve account is guaranteed by the full faith and credit of the U.S. government. Unlike private banks, this can never fail. All citizens will receive their deposits in new CBDC accounts. It's completely safe. This is temporary until the crisis is resolved. Step 3. Eliminate alternatives. For security during the crisis, cash withdrawals are limited. Private banks will gradually transition to the new system. Cryptocurrency exchanges must close until new regulations are in place. Step 4. Make it permanent. The transition has been so successful, we're making it permanent. Cash is being phased out. It's inefficient and used primarily by criminals. The new system gives us better tools to fight inflation and manage the economy. By the time people realize what they've accepted, the infrastructure of control is already in place, and removing it would require dismantling the entire financial system. This pattern isn't new. Let me show you the historical precedents for every step of this process. The bank holiday precedent, 1933. When Roosevelt took office, he immediately declared a bank holiday, closing all banks for 4 days. The official reason was to stop bank runs and restore confidence. The actual effect was to prevent people from withdrawing gold before the confiscation order. When banks reopened, gold withdrawals were prohibited. People accepted this because the alternative appeared to be total bank failure. A modern CBDC transition could follow a similar pattern. Declare a banking emergency, freeze accounts temporarily, transition everyone to CBDC accounts during the freeze, then reopen with the new system in place. The elimination of large bills, 1969. In 1969, President Nixon ordered the Treasury to stop printing bills larger than $100. The $500 and $1,000 bills were removed from circulation. The official reason was fighting crime. The effect was making large cash transactions more difficult, which gave the government more visibility into financial flows. A modern cash phase-out would likely follow the same pattern. First, eliminate large bills, making cash inconvenient for large transactions. Then eliminate smaller bills gradually. Then phase out cash entirely, citing crime and efficiency. India's demonetization, 2016. This is the most recent and relevant example. On November 8th, 2016, India's Prime Minister Modi went on television and announced that all 500 and 1,000 rupee notes, representing 86% of currency in circulation, would be invalid as of midnight. Citizens had 50 days to deposit old notes in banks and receive new notes. The official reason was fighting corruption and black money. The actual result was massive disruption. People waiting in bank lines for days, small businesses unable to operate, the informal economy crushed, and very little black money was actually found. But here's the key. It functioned as preparation for digital currency adoption. During the chaos, the government pushed digital payment apps. Millions of Indians who had never used digital payments were forced to adopt them because cash wasn't available. India is now moving toward a digital rupee CBDC, and the 2016 demonetization reduced resistance by making people dependent on digital transactions. This demonstrates the pattern. Create a crisis, force adoption of digital systems, then make it permanent. Now let me show you the specific technical features that make CBDCs different from any previous form of money, because understanding the architecture reveals the potential policy mechanisms. Feature 1. Programmability. This is the foundation of everything else. CBDC tokens can have smart contract functionality embedded in them. Money becomes code, and code can have rules. Central bank research papers discuss 3 types of programmability. Type 1. Issuer programmability. The central bank could program rules into money when it's created. Expiration dates, geographic restrictions, category restrictions, all embedded in the token itself. Type 2. User programmability. This would be marketed as a feature. You can program your money to automatically pay bills, automatically save a percentage, automatically invest. Sounds convenient. But user programmability requires infrastructure that also enables issuer programmability. You can't have one without the other. Type 3. Conditional transfers. Money that only transfers if certain conditions are met. This stimulus payment only works if you've met specified requirements. This subsidy only transfers if you meet certain criteria. This would turn money into a tool of policy enforcement. Compliance becomes literally profitable, non-compliance literally expensive. Feature 2. Real-time monitoring. Current banking systems have transaction monitoring, but it's delayed and aggregated. The bank sees your transactions, reports suspicious activity to the government, but there's a layer of separation. With CBDCs, the central bank would see every transaction in real time. Not aggregated data, not monthly reports, real-time, individual transaction data. Federal Reserve research papers discuss using this data for more accurate economic modeling and better monetary policy implementation. This means the ability to track economic activity in real time and adjust policy dynamically based on what people are doing with money. Feature 3. Granular control. The technology allows control at the individual wallet level, not just system-wide policy. Most people think of monetary policy as interest rates, something that affects everyone equally. With CBDCs, policy could theoretically be individualized. High-income earner? Your CBDC wallet might have different terms to address inequality. Living in a depressed region? Your wallet might have incentives for buying local goods. This isn't speculation. The Bank of England's CBDC research specifically discusses account-level policy implementation as a technical possibility. Feature 4. Integration with digital ID. CBDCs wouldn't exist in isolation. They would require digital identity systems. You couldn't have a CBDC wallet without proving who you are. And once your identity is linked to your money, every transaction becomes linked to your identity. The European Union is already rolling out digital ID wallets as part of their financial infrastructure. These wallets could eventually hold your CBDC along with other digital credentials. Your money would become inseparable from your identity, and your identity inseparable from your compliance with various policies. Now let me show you exactly how CBDCs could be used to implement the debt liquidation strategy we discussed in video 1, because this is where theory meets practice. Tool 1. Negative interest rates without limit. Right now, negative interest rates are hard to implement because people can withdraw cash. If your bank account charges you 2% per year to hold money, you just take it out and hold cash. With CBDCs and no cash, this escape route would be closed. The central bank could impose negative 5% rates, negative 10% rates, whatever they deemed necessary to force spending and manage the debt burden. Your CBDC balance would automatically shrink every month. You either spend it or watch it evaporate. Saving becomes functionally impossible. This forces money into circulation, drives up prices, and inflates away government debt in real terms. Tool 2. Targeted stimulus with mandatory spending. When the government wants to stimulate the economy, they usually cut interest rates or send checks, but people might save the checks instead of spending them. With CBDCs, they could send stimulus that expires in 30 days and can only be spent on certain categories. This would guarantee the money gets spent on consumption, driving up GDP and inflation. During a debt management period, there could be frequent, targeted stimulus that expires quickly and can only be used for specific purposes. This creates artificial demand, drives prices up, and erodes debt in real terms. Tool 3. Automatic taxation. Right now, the government collects taxes after you earn money. With CBDCs, they could potentially collect taxes before you even receive it. Your employer sends your paycheck. It hits your CBDC wallet. Income tax, Social Security tax, Medicare tax, state tax, and any new taxes could be automatically deducted before you see it. They could theoretically implement new taxes through policy updates rather than waiting for legislation. Carbon tax now implemented, 2% of all transactions automatically deducted. And they could make taxes granular and targeted. Wealth tax, automatically calculated and deducted monthly based on your wallet balance. Luxury tax, automatically applied when you buy certain categories of goods. Tool 4. Capital controls without bureaucracy. Historically, capital controls required complex regulations and enforcement. You needed permission to move money overseas, had to fill out forms, wait for approval. With CBDCs, capital controls could be automatic. International transfers could be blocked at the protocol level, or allowed but with automatic exit taxes, or limited to certain amounts per year without any paperwork. If the dollar were to lose reserve status and capital flight accelerated, as we discussed in video 1, the government would need to prevent money from leaving. CBDCs would make this technically straightforward. Tool 5. Emergency financial measures. Remember Cyprus in 2013? The government seized a percentage of bank deposits to bail out failing banks. This is called a bail-in, where depositors become creditors who lose money when banks fail. With CBDCs, this could become automated. Due to financial emergency, all accounts with balances over $100,000 will have 10% automatically transferred to stabilize the banking system. No bank run would be possible because you couldn't withdraw cash. No lengthy political fight necessary because it's emergency authority. Your CBDC balance just shrinks. Based on current central bank communications and historical patterns, here's one possible timeline for CBDC implementation in the United States. Phase 1, 2025 to 2027, preparation. Continue pilot programs with major banks. The Fed is already doing this. Build public-private partnerships with payment processors and tech companies, already happening. Begin public messaging campaigns about CBDC benefits. Faster payments, financial inclusion, fighting crime. Watch for this messaging to intensify. Coordinate with international partners. The Bank for International Settlements is already coordinating CBDC standards globally. Phase 2, 2027 to 2029, limited launch. Launch CBDC for specific use cases first. Government payments, Social Security, federal employee salaries. This would establish infrastructure and get millions of people using CBDCs without making it mandatory for everyone. Frame it as voluntary and beneficial. Sign up for instant Social Security payments in your new Fed account. Phase 3, 2029 to 2031, potential crisis deployment. In the event of a banking crisis, whether triggered by bank failures, debt crisis, or international dollar rejection, emergency measures could be announced. During such a crisis, all deposits guaranteed in new CBDC accounts, temporary freeze on bank withdrawals, migration of accounts to CBDC system, eliminate cash gradually. First eliminate large bills, then stop printing new bills, then set a deadline for exchanging old cash. Phase 4, 2031 to 2033, full implementation. Once cash is eliminated and everyone is on CBDCs, control features could be implemented gradually. Start with popular features. automatic bill pay, automatic savings, government benefits with incentives. Then implement restrictive features, purchase category restrictions marketed as fighting crime, geographic restrictions marketed as fighting money laundering, expiration dates marketed as economic stimulus. By 2033, full programmable CBDC infrastructure could be operational and cash fully eliminated. Phase 5, 2033 to 2037, debt management. This aligns with the debt liquidation timeline from Video 1. Once CBDCs are fully deployed, implement negative real rates through combination of official inflation and CBDC mechanisms. Force spending through expiration dates and negative rates, potentially driving inflation to 6 to 8% sustained. Prevent escape to hard assets through transaction restrictions and capital controls. Over 5 years, inflate away 40 to 50% of debt in real terms while limiting citizens' ability to protect themselves. This timeline assumes no major accelerating crisis. If there's a severe banking crisis or debt crisis earlier, the timeline could compress dramatically. The Federal Reserve knows privacy concerns are the biggest obstacle to CBDC acceptance. Here are the arguments they may use to address this concern. Argument 1. We'll build privacy in. Fed research papers discuss privacy-preserving CBDCs using cryptographic techniques. They may claim transactions can be private from commercial entities while only the Fed sees them. This might be technically accurate, but raises important questions. Yes, Walmart wouldn't see your transaction history, but the government would. And the government is precisely the entity you might need privacy from when they're implementing financial policy measures. Argument 2. We already monitored transactions. They may argue that banks already report large transactions and suspicious activity, so CBDCs don't fundamentally change anything. This comparison has limitations. Current systems have thresholds, delays, and layers. Banks report suspicious activity, not every transaction. There's a meaningful difference between selective monitoring and comprehensive surveillance. With CBDCs, every transaction would be visible in real time. Every dollar you spend, every dollar you receive, every person you transact with. No thresholds, no delays, complete visibility. Argument 3, privacy enables crime. This will likely be a main talking point. If you're not doing anything wrong, you have nothing to hide. Only criminals need financial privacy. This is the same argument used to justify surveillance expansion throughout history. Privacy isn't necessarily about hiding criminal activity. It's about preventing government overreach. It's about maintaining a sphere of life where the state cannot reach. It's about preserving autonomy. The East German Stasi had detailed records on millions of citizens, not because they were all criminals, but because comprehensive surveillance was how the state maintained control. Financial surveillance could be even more powerful. Argument 4. Other countries are doing it. They may point to China, India, the European Union, all developing CBDCs, and argue that America must keep up or lose technological leadership. This is essentially peer pressure as policy. Just because other countries implement financial surveillance infrastructure doesn't necessarily mean democracies should follow. But watch for this argument to intensify as more countries launch CBDCs. The pressure to conform may be presented as economic necessity. Now let me address the question everyone asks: what are the options for maintaining financial autonomy in a CBDC world? The honest answer is, it depends on how completely CBDCs are implemented and what alternatives remain legal. Option 1. Cryptocurrency as parallel system. If cryptocurrency remains legal and accessible, it could function as a parallel monetary system. Bitcoin, Monero, and other cryptocurrencies could be used for transactions outside CBDC surveillance. But this would require cryptocurrency remaining legal, which might be questioned during a financial crisis. Willingness to operate in an economy where CBDC isn't the only accepted payment. Finding counterparties willing to accept cryptocurrency despite potential complications. The government could make this difficult by requiring all businesses to only accept CBDCs and restricting cryptocurrency transactions. Enforcement would be imperfect, but it would push cryptocurrency to the margins. Option 2. Barter and local economies. If CBDCs become the dominant currency, local exchange economies could emerge. Trade goods and services directly without involving official money. This works for small-scale transactions but breaks down for anything complex. Try buying a car or house through barter. Historically, barter economies emerged in disrupted states. Soviet Union in the 90s, Zimbabwe during hyperinflation, Venezuela recently, but they're inefficient and limited. Option 3. Foreign currency and international assets. Holding assets in foreign currencies or international accounts could provide some insulation from CBDC restrictions, but this requires access to foreign accounts, which requires significant resources and legal compliance. Foreign countries not implementing their own CBDCs with similar features. Navigating currency control regulations if CBDCs restrict foreign currency holdings. Option 4. Physical stores of value. Gold, silver, art, real estate, anything with value that exists outside the digital system. But you eventually need to convert these back to currency for many transactions, which brings you back into the CBDC system. The realistic assessment. If CBDCs are fully implemented and cash is fully eliminated, your ability to operate outside the system depends on what alternatives remain legal and practical. This isn't purely a technical problem. It's a political problem. The most effective resistance would be political resistance to prevent problematic CBDC implementations in the first place. Here's something interesting. Opposition to certain CBDC features crosses traditional political lines. The libertarian right opposes CBDCs as government overreach and surveillance. The progressive left may oppose CBDCs as tools of control that harm privacy and civil liberties. The populist right opposes CBDCs as elite control mechanisms. The privacy advocates across all political spectrums oppose comprehensive financial surveillance. This creates a potential coalition that could influence implementation, but only if people understand what's being built before it's deployed during a crisis. The key is, resistance must happen before the crisis. Once there's a banking emergency and CBDCs are presented as the solution to prevent collapse, political resistance becomes much harder. The warning signs to watch. Let me give you the specific warning signs that might indicate CBDC rollout is approaching, because recognizing these early provides time to prepare. Warning, sign 1, banking crisis narrative. Watch for sudden media focus on banking instability, bank failures, deposit insurance limits, people losing money in bank failures. This narrative could prepare the public to accept CBDCs as the safe alternative to risky private banks. Warning sign 2, cash restriction proposals. Proposals to eliminate large bills, limit cash transactions, require reporting of cash payments above low thresholds. The European Union is already proposing to restrict large cash transactions. Other jurisdictions may follow similar patterns. Warning sign 3, cryptocurrency regulation. Aggressive regulation or restriction of cryptocurrency, shutting down exchanges, prosecuting users. This could eliminate alternatives to CBDCs before they're rolled out. Warning sign 4, financial emergency powers. The president declaring financial emergencies, activating emergency banking powers, similar to Roosevelt's 1933 bank holiday. This would provide legal framework for rapid CBDC transition. Warning sign 5, digital ID integration. Requirements to use digital ID for banking, linking identity to financial accounts more tightly than current requirements. This would be infrastructure preparation for CBDC wallets that require biometric or digital ID authentication. If you see 3 or more of these happening in proximity, significant financial system changes may be approaching. Let me be clear about what's at stake, because this isn't just about technology or monetary policy, it's about the fundamental relationship between citizens and the state. For most of human history, there were spaces where state power could not easily reach. You could keep coins in your home that authorities couldn't see. You could engage in private transactions that left no permanent record. You could save without the government knowing exact amounts. This privacy wasn't a loophole. It was a fundamental feature of personal autonomy. The inability of the state to monitor every economic action created space for independence. CBDCs could eliminate that space, not partially, potentially entirely. Every transaction visible to the state in real time, every dollar you own controlled by code, every purchase you make potentially subject to approval or restriction, every aspect of your economic life transparent to authorities. This is not an exaggeration. This is the technical reality of what comprehensive CBDC systems could enable. Now, proponents will argue this capability will be used responsibly to fight crime, to make the economy more efficient, to help people. That's the stated intent. Maybe early implementations will seem benign. Maybe the intentions are genuinely good. But infrastructure, once created, persists regardless of initial intent. Systems designed with control capabilities tend to use those capabilities. Not necessarily because people are malicious, but because systems designed for control get used for control. Look at the history we've covered. In 1933, emergency banking powers were supposed to be temporary. They evolved into permanent infrastructure. Executive Order 6102 was supposed to stabilize the economy. It became wealth transfer. The pattern tends to repeat. Temporary crisis measures become permanent infrastructure. Narrow emergency powers expand to routine policy. Protective regulations become control mechanisms. We've now covered the complete picture across 3 videos. Video 1 showed you the $38 trillion debt crisis and why the government faces pressure to inflate it away. Video 2 showed you the Executive Order 6102 precedent, demonstrating that governments have used emergency powers to restrict property rights during crises. This video showed you the infrastructure being developed that could make financial policy implementation more precise and comprehensive than ever before. CBDCs represent potentially the final piece of this puzzle. Once implemented with these capabilities, governments would have unprecedented tools to restrict purchases of certain assets through transaction controls, encourage spending through expiration dates and negative rates, manage debt burden while limiting traditional hedging strategies, monitor economic activity in real time with complete visibility, implement individualized policy without requiring new legislation. The question is, will people recognize what's being built, or will they accept it as necessary modernization? History suggests most people won't recognize the implications until after implementation. The transition will be marketed as safety, efficiency, and progress. By the time control features are fully activated, removing them would require dismantling the entire financial system, and nobody wants that disruption. But you now have the information. You understand the fiscal pressures driving this. You understand the historical precedent showing what governments do during crises. And you understand the technical architecture being developed. What you do with this information is your choice. In the comments, tell me, do you think CBDCs with these features are inevitable, or can informed citizens influence how they're implemented? Do you think I'm overstating the risks or understating them? And if you found value in this series, subscribe and share these videos. Because the best defense against problematic systems is widespread understanding of how those systems work. The infrastructure is being prepared. The research is published. The only question is whether enough people understand the implications before deployment decisions are made. I'll see you in the next one. I'm Malcolm, and this is History Meets Economics. If you think this analysis is wrong, explain where. If you think it's accurate, explain why. Here's another moment, History Met Economics.